Welcome to the solution video for the word count challenge. Let's jump right in. I have the starter project already open. So this is our string array to work with. This is the values we should get. We can actually collapse these for now. And here's our main with the console.readline already in it. Okay, so let's go through and kind of list out the different steps we're going to do. So let's put these in comments right inside of our main. So the first thing we'll do is total character count. Next, Next, we will do the number of non-white space / non-line return characters. Then the number of words in a string. And then finally the list of words. So that's the normal challenge. Then we have our advanced challenge, which is the unique words list, the most used word, unique character list, and that's just the alpha or the A through Z characters, and the most used character. All right, so those are our tasks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create methods for each of these just to make it a little bit easier. I'm also going to wrap this whole thing in a loop or a for each because of the fact that I have more than one string coming in. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to right click, snip it, surround with for each. We're going to say for each string, and this will be, let's call it test in tests. And that's going to loop through every string in our tests array. And we're going to test each one. So that's the name of it is test. And yeah, so we'll go through each one of them. All right, so let's start off with the total character count. So let's create a method here. We're going to call this get total characters, and we'll pass in our test, and we'll just do we do. Total characters A9 is what we're supposed to get. We have 92. And we have 281 instead of 276. Why is that? Well, in case you didn't know, each one of these line returns here. Okay, so from this line to this line, we hit the enter key. But that's technically two different characters. I believe it's character 10 and 13, if I remember back to my ASCII days. So that's a problem, and we want to solve that problem. Remember I told you that we're going to say that each line return is just one character. And right now we're counting as 2, and it's going to cause we do. So now we're on track with our very first one. We've got the total character count. We've replaced those line returns with one single space, which is one character, and it aligns with what we need to do soon, which is splitting on the space character. So that's the first one. The next one is non-white space, non-line return characters. So let's create a method for that. Get, and let's just say non-white space characters. Pass in the word. We'll do our control dot to create that. And now we can do something similar to this, but let's actually copy this since it has the string interpolation, and we can say total non-white space characters. And instead of passing in, by the way, you can rename this to word so we're consistent. So instead of saying word.length, we're going to delete this. Whoops. We're going to delete this, and instead we're going to say word.where x arrow function. X is not equal to an empty string. We're going to close that out. So what am I doing? Well, I've replaced my line returns with spaces. So now, since I have to replace all white space, which means a space, and line returns, well, line returns are already spaces, I can just say replace all spaces with nothing. Now, I could do a replace here and then do a count, or I can do this where clause and say, give me all the characters where the characters being looked at is not a space. All right, so that's the where clause. And at the end of that, I can say dot count. So give me a count of all the characters that are not spaces. Essentially is what they're doing. All right, so now it should be, if we run this, let's actually scroll up a little bit and look at our numbers. We see that 89 total characters, 60 non-white space. All right, and then down here, 276 and 230, 276 and 230. So we're good to go. So the first two are done. Now we need to get the number of words in a string. All right, so let's define this method. I'm going to have it return the words since we need to also list the words down here. So it's going to get the number, it's going to get the words first. So list of string words equals get words from string. Pass in word, which doesn't make sense really. We're calling this word but it's not really a word. So let's call this filtered test. I hit Control Dot and rename it. Let's rename it in those 3 spots. Now it does not rename it down here where I said word. So let's rename it there as well. So we have it be consistent throughout. So now get words from string. There's our filtered test. That's what we're going to be trying to get the words out of. We hit Control Dot. It creates our new method. So list of string output equals new list of string. And actually, I don't think I need to initialize this. Let's actually not. So we start off with just output because I'm going to fill this in when I split on my word. Now let's just split as we are right now. It's going to cause a problem, but I'm going to show you that problem and we're going to show you how to fix it. So let's do our output equals filtered test dot split. We're going to split on the space character. And I am going to say where x, the arrow function, or the equals to greater than, I'm going to say not string is null or white space. And that to list. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm splitting on the space character. And then I'm saying, well, yeah, but take that list and make sure that none of the entries are null or white space. Because we have some double and triple spaces. So if we split on space, there'll be some empty or null entries. And so if we use this and say, okay, take the whole list and only give me the ones that are not null or white space. Take the whole thing, put it to a list, and put it in output. So now it should be all the words in my string. And we'll return this. Okay. Now I'm just going to put a breakpoint. So let's put it after this. We're going to inspect this list of words. I'm not going to print it out to the screen yet. So down here I have my words. And they start looking good. That looks pretty good. So the test of the best way to handle multiple, there's a problem. Lines has a comma at the end. More has a period at the end. If I hit continue, looked at these words, they're going to get even messier. Let's scroll down. Count has a comma after it. Including has an opening paren. Returns has a closed paren and a comma. Finally, a string has a period. Finally has a comma. I mean, this is a mess. This is not what we want. So remember I said that just doing this is going to cause a problem. And that's because we need to get out those extra characters. Because really, at this point, they don't matter anymore. So we're going to pull them out. So let's create a regex string to do this for us. Now, a regex string is a regular expression, and it's used to tell the compiler, here's what I'm looking for. It's very, very precise, and it's very, very flexible in what you can ask for it. In this case, we're going to do a simple one. So let's create regex, control dot, add the using statement for system.text.regular expressions. And we'll call this our alpha check. And we're going to say equals new regex, open and close our parens, and inside here, inside double quotes, we're going to have inside square braces, we're going to have our actual regular expression. We're going to start off with the caret character. So it's over the 6 if you're not familiar. So the caret character. And this is going to say not. All right, so A through Z, lowercase, A through Z, uppercase, space. All right, so what it's saying is this is going to match, this alpha check is going to match on anything that is not A through Z, either lowercase or uppercase, or a space. So as any other character, it's going to find a match. Then we're going to say string cleaned test equals alpha check dot replace. So here's our input. Our input is filtered test, and our match evaluator is alpha check. Oops, not alpha check. It is empty string. All right. So what we're doing here is we're taking our regular expression and saying, whenever you find a match, replace it. Now, where are you looking for the matches? Well, you're looking in the filtered text or test. And when you find a match to a non-A through Z or space character, replace it with an empty string. Basically, remove it from the string. When it runs through the entire thing, it's going to put the result into cleaned text. Now we use this instead of filtered text down here. And our output should be valid. Let's go ahead and put our breakpoint at the end here and run it. And now count equals 14. Let's look at the last one. We know there's a period there. More, period. That's it. So you look up here. More has a period at the end. Not anymore. Lines had a comma. Doesn't anymore. If we hit continue, you'll notice there is no open paren on including and no comma after finally, no period after string. $14 words and 45 words. So we're on the right track. All right, and the list of words, and that's pretty easy. We can just do a for each here. Now I'll show you a shortcut. Words.forEach. It's a list, so it has this extension method. We can say word and then our arrow function and say console write line word. Take the semicolon off, put a semicolon at the end. And now what it's going to do is do a for each on our words list. And for each one, we're going to put it into the variable called word. And we're going to print that word out. Now, if we run this, we see there's our totals at the top. Then there's our words right there. There's our totals at the top. And then there's all of our words here. So that's all of the regular challenge. Now let's move on to the bonus challenge. And I'm actually going to move these around. I'm going to cut them out from here. And I'm going to put them before this list of words. It's just a little bit cleaner here. So you can see the top, all the totals, and then the list of words. Then afterwards, let's go ahead and put a blank line as well, just to kind of give us a little bit of separation here. It's not going to change much right now, but notice that it's a little bit more readable to have that. In fact, we'll probably put a blank line before the list as well. So let's just do that. That way it's just a little bit of separation, makes it a little bit easier to read. All right, so unique word list. So we need to find all the unique words in our list of words, which we conveniently have. And in fact, I'm actually going to combine these two together. The unique word list and the most used word. So let's do this. Let's create our method. Find unique words. Pass in the words. And we'll control dot to create that method. That's right here. And now we can do is do our search, which in this case, I'm going to use link. Now, normally I use kind of like link easy mode, which is these right here. So like dot where, dot from, or something like that. So not dot from, dot select. Sorry. Draw a blank there. But we're going to use full link. So let's say var results equals. Now, typically I don't use var very often because of the fact that I like to be explicit in what I'm doing. So instead of var alpha check, I said regex alpha check. It's just a little more explicit. Now, it is a nice shortcut sometimes, and sometimes I use it for things like list of string. I can just say var, because I immediately say equals new list of string. But in this case, this is what var was originally designed for. I'm going to create an anonymous type. So I create this, basically a query on my data, and it's going to return a new set of objects. But I don't have a model to put them in. I'm just going to create in memory, and it's going to be anonymous. And you'll see what I mean. So from word in words. This looks a lot like a query in SQL because it pretty much does the same thing. It's just rearranged a little bit. In fact, the select is the last thing we do, not the first thing, which kind of makes more sense. Okay, so we're first saying where we're pulling our data from. So each row is a word now, and words is my list. So this is a name I created, just kind of made it up. This is my list. Now I can say, let's do a group by first. So we're going to group each word by So we're going to order by the count descending, meaning the one that has the highest count goes on top. And then I'm going to do my select. I'm going to create a new anonymous class for each one. I'm going to say total equals g.count. That's the total number of this item. And word equals g.key. Key is the item that we're grouping by. All right, so now I have this results, which you mouse over is an IEnumerable, and it says A. A is a new anonymous type with an int total and a string word. All right. So now what I can do is I can find, we need to return the unique word list and obviously the results, there'll be no results. Therefore, I can say first or default, if there's no results, it's going to be null. Therefore, this question mark here, what it's going to say is, if it's null, don't go any further. So it's going to say most used word and it's going to be empty, but that's okay. And then let's put in parens the results dot first or default question mark dot total. Now that will give us the number of items. So we'll put, I should put times after it. So to say 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, something of that nature. Let's print it out. Let's see what happens. So we have our list. Let's scroll up here to get our numbers. Let's scroll to the very top. The most used word in the first set is the 2 times. The 2 times. Yep. The most used word in the second set is the. Kind of makes sense. And it's 6 times. And the 6 times. So we're, again, on track. Now let's print out our unique words, which actually we can do right here. So let's actually put a console write line, empty line here. I'm going to do another one that is, let's just do a few stars. Like so. And then we'll actually paste it again. And in between those two, we're going to do our results dot for each. Let's do toList for each word. Do our arrow function and say console write line word. Move our semicolon to the end. The reason I had to move a semicolon at the end is because we only have one line in here. If I had multiple lines, I need to wrap in the curly braces. But because there's only one line, I don't need to have curly braces and I don't put a semicolon at the end. So just kind of a quirk on the for each. So now it should be that it prints out our unique words. So that's messy because I just did a print out the actual value, forgetting that the word is actually not what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for the word dot word. All right. Because this is actually unique words, the test of best way to handle multiple lines, extra spaces, and more. All right. So, and notice all of them are ones, except for this one's 2. We're down here 6, and then we got 1, 2, 3, 4 2s, and then some 1s. So let's go ahead and change that. Instead of word, we can say word dot word, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's a little better at least. So there we go. Unique words are right there. And the same down here. These are our unique words, whereas these are our regular words. And in fact, let's take the same concept and bring it up here for these and say all words. All right. So now we have the unique word list and the most used word. Let's do the same thing with characters. So find unique characters. Pass in our words. Actually, not our words. That's not what we want because that would cause a problem. Instead, what we're looking for is our string. So we want to pass in this filtered text, but really what we want is we want this cleaned test. That's what we're really looking for because that is the one that has just alpha characters and spaces. And in fact, we actually remove spaces. So let's do this. Let's grab this right here. I'm going to copy it. And then here, what I'm going to do is just put my filtered test because that's where we start from. I'm going to remove even more. So control dot, create my method for it. I'm going to paste in my alpha check and I'm going to remove the space. So this will remove anything that's not an alpha character. Because remember, we're just looking at alpha characters. So now that I have my cleaned test, this is passing in filtered test. So we're all good. Clean test is now it's a string that's just alpha characters. That's all it is. Now I can go through and find the list of characters and the unique ones and all the rest. So let's do var results, kind of like what we're doing down here. We'll say equals from C in cleaned test dot to lower. So I'm taking this list of characters and saying, okay, make that all lowercase. Now group, we're going to group by C into G. Basically group by the character. All right, the whole thing, it's used to having different values like or properties underneath the object. But in this case, it's just a character. Now, I keep saying character. The reason why is because we're taking a string and we're saying from C in that string, that means it's going to take each individual char out of that string. So each of these is a char. Notice if I mouse over, it says char. So it's taking each char in the string, basically one character. So it's taking that and looping through each one. So we're going to group by each character into, again, G. And we're going to order by G.count, like before, descending. And say select new. We're going to say total equals G.count to be consistent. And then letter equals G.key, which this is going to be a char. So let's just do a toString. That way we actually return strings, not char. Just a little easier to work with. So now that we have this, we can actually create this structure right here, which I'm actually going to copy. Most used character. And instead of word, it is letter. And the total is still correct. And this down here is letter. Let's call it letter. Like so. And let's fix this. Copy paste can be a mess, so be careful on it. So I'm saying character here, and I'm saying letters down here. Let's say letter. It's a little bit more typically understood. So, and letter also is a little more specific than character. A character could be a comma. We're not looking for commas here. We're looking for just alpha characters, which are letters. So now we have our most used letter, which is the first one on the list since we ordered descending. And the total number is this. So let's run this and find what we have. There's all of our unique letters. Let's scroll to the very top here. And then let's look at our characters. So it says the most used letter is E 10 times for our first set. E 10 times. Let's scroll down the next one. The most used letter is T 24 times. And it's T 24 times. Which means that we have now completed the challenge and the bonus challenge for our word count challenge. All right. I hope you follow along. If you have any questions, let me know. But these are kind of all broken apart. You can do a little better with kind of extracting some of this stuff right here into, output values. You can then put these into class libraries and do stuff like that. But the reality is we got it to work, which was our goal. On that versus items in a list, and group buys and order buys and all this good stuff. So hopefully it kind of stretched you a little bit. If yours worked but didn't do it the way I did, that's fine. But maybe try out my way and just kind of get familiar with that as well, so you have one more tool in your toolbox. All right, thank you for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.